play it loud.
Ms. Baker. Yesterday, Mr. Jenkins. Present. Mr. Lynn. Present. Ms. Lynch.
Here.
Ms. McCullough.
Here.
Mr. Pearson. Present. Mr. Smith. Here. Mr. Thibodeau. Here. That's all, Madam President.
Okay. Let us please stand. We'll have our invocation by President Angel from Calvary Baptist. Pledge of allegiance by Jimmy Cooper.
Let us pray. Father God, we want to thank you for this great day that you've created. We should be glad in it. And Father, we ask today that you give these men and women, as they hear these different cases and they discuss these different cases, give them wisdom as they have to make decisions. Father, we ask for protection in our lives. God, we ask for protection for our troops that are currently overseas, that you'll be able to bring them home safely, they'll be reunited with their family. And God, we just pray for each man and each woman's family that's represented here today. Father, we ask that your blessings fall upon their lives. Father, we ask you to put your hands around them and protect them and everything they may do. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda additions, Commissioner Lynn.
Yes, I'd like to bring up a motion moving to allow Mary Bones in the juvenile detention facility to obtain special counsel. Second.
Moved by Commissioner Lynn, second by Commissioner Jenkins. Any discussion? Please vote.
Just a moment, please.
Okay, that passes. Commissioner Epperson?
I'd like to have an agenda addition for the appointment of Mr. John H. Stewart to the Coordinating and Development Corporation Board. Second.
Moved by Commissioner Epperson, second by Commissioner Jenkins. Any discussion? Please vote.
Just a moment, please.
Could you pass me that pencil, please? Thank you, sir.
Okay.
That passes. Next item?
Yes, no, minutes of April 23rd.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Commissioner Thibodeau, second by Commissioner Smith. Any discussion? Please vote.
Good job.
That passes. Next item?
I have no special resolutions for this meeting. Next, communication reports, the administration response first.
Good afternoon, Madam President, Commissioners. We have two things today coming from the admin. Last Monday, Mr. Kent Rogers was ill and couldn't be here to update you on part of stimulus money. He is here today. I'd like to give him a few minutes to come up and talk to you about the Federal Highway Transportation part of the Stimulus of the American Recovery Act program. So at this time, Mr. Rogers from NRCOG, who's the director of NRCOG here in the community.
I think y'all got a package. Yes. Okay, thank you. Just give you a quick, brief overview of where the money is and where the money isn't. American Recovery Reinvestment Act was passed with $787 billion in funding. Roughly $111 billion of that was for infrastructure and science, a very small amount compared to the total package. If you go to the second slide, that shows you how much of that money is actually for transportation. Of that $787 billion, roughly 6.1% is for transportation and infrastructure. Kind of a misnomer compared to what the American public was sold to. From that $48.1 billion, $27.5 billion is for highways, $8.4 for transit, $1.3 for Amtrak, $8 billion for high-speed rail, and $1.5 billion for a discretionary pot. That discretionary pot has some stipulations in terms of how projects can be applied for, the amount of money that can be applied for under that pot, and how that money will be distributed. All the rules and regulations for that portion have not been advertised or administered yet, so we'll deal with that as it comes along. Third page, how much is the highway funding, how is the highway funding distributed? From that transportation money, $27.5 billion was for highways. Once you take out money for the national parks and roads, forestry, the takedowns, as Federal Highway Administration calls them, you're left with roughly $26.6 billion total for the United States. Of that portion, roughly $430 million, is for the state of Louisiana. Of that money, there are three sub-allocations of that money. 67% goes directly to the state, and they have discretion on how to spend that money. Of that 67%, 50% of it had to have been obligated within 120 days of the awarding of the money. They have since passed a resolution for, it's a little more than 50%, it's about 75% of the state's money towards that. Of that portion, 42 million of it went towards I-49 North. 30% of it is sub-allocated to the MPOs throughout the state, and 3% towards transportation enhancement funds. Transportation enhancement includes bicycles, pedestrian ways, beautification projects, and I hate to let y'all know that of that roughly 13 million of enhancement funds, roughly 11 million of that went to the New Orleans area, repair and replacement of streets that weren't funded under the Recovery Act from the hurricanes. How is Louisiana sub-allocation administered? If you go to the next page, it shows you that there was a chunk for MPOs of areas that are over 200,000 in population. That's what they classify as the urbanized area. For our area, that's roughly Benton, Blanchard, South, Greenwood, Houghton, and that area contained within. So it's Shreveport and Bossier City and some of the outlying areas. The interesting thing to note is that the three major metropolitan areas of the state, we get roughly $28.86 per head. And the smaller urban areas get anywhere from 54 up to $153 a head. Those smaller urban areas are actually getting allocated more money than the Shreveport-Bossier City area. All of these figures are based on the 2000 census population. The references go back to the Safety Lou legislation, which is the federal highway legislation that we live under right now. What about the Shreveport MPO and our 7.9 million sub-allocation? Again, we had a list of things you can and cannot spend the money on and how that money can be spent. Our first thing was to look at what projects we had on the books right now that could be done. Of those projects, we had a few that were ready to be let, but we already had money allocated for them, so it wasn't going to do us any good to replace those projects. One of them was the Uri Drive to Kings Highway Improvement Project. It wouldn't have done us any good to replace the money we already had allocated for that project with these monies, because we didn't have another one specifically qualified for that money ready to go down the line. So we would have just more or less been out of the money. These monies come to the area as a whole. There is no requirement that we sub-allocate these monies to the jurisdiction. Our board looked at what projects we had on the books and what projects would have been ready to go under the normal circumstances, and decided, no, we wouldn't do those. We would do some type of split population-wise for the four main jurisdictions and work from there. Where can we spend that money? If you turn your page to the next map, it has a map on there that shows what the urbanized area is. It also has the functional classification system for the major roadways within the area. That's the second kicker to the money. Not only is it limited to where we can spend it, but what roads we can spend the money on. It has to be an urban collector or above. You have to have followed federal guidelines for environmental work, for engineering work. You have to have them ready to go. We have a very strict timeline of how projects will make their way through the process in order for us to obligate these monies within a 1-year time frame. By doing that, when you sub-allocate those monies, you kind of get a short list real quick of where you can spend the money and what projects you can spend it on. The next page, what can we spend it on? Restoration, repair, some new construction. We could actually, if we had a TIFIA, that's the TIFIA program, if we had a TIFIA loan out there, we could repay the TIFIA loan with these monies. But you can't replace previously authorized. If we had had a project that had just been authorized from federal highways, we couldn't have taken this money and replaced it with that and taken that money and spent it elsewhere. The good thing is they're 100% monies. Unlike most of the other federal highway and federal transit monies that are 80-20, these are 100%. So there's no match support that has to go with it. The bad part about that is, though, they're reimbursable. You have to spend your own money up front. We have developed what we call a Plan A and a Plan B for how we're going to spend the money in the area. Plan A is to take roughly $5.25 million of the funding and place that towards I-49 North, Section I. That is the first section of I-49 North that is within this urbanized area. It's on the map. And it's also the only portion of I-49 North that's within this urbanized area that would be ready to let for construction within that 1-year time frame. So we're kind of held as to that time frame again. $1.2 million for Stockwell Road rehab and rehabilitation, $750,000 towards Greenwood Acres Boulevard rehab, and $700,000 for Woolworth Road. Basically what we've done is these, if you go back to those percentages and the numbers per jurisdiction, we identified the projects that would be able to be done within that time frame. Within those basic funding breakdowns for Bossier City, Caddo, and Bossier Parish, the monies that were left over after the project, such as Bossier City's, I believe, added to Bossier City's portion adds up to 195. So they have about there would be roughly $365,000 left over. We take that money and throw it into the I-49 project. Basically, the city of Shreveport said the portion that we would get, we would put towards I-49. As we weeded out the other projects, the remaining money that was left over, we rolled that over into the I-49 project. That gives a little bit from each jurisdiction going towards those projects. The Bossier Parish administration had elected to put all of their money towards the I-49 North project. The Plan B is just in case we cannot do that I-49 North project. The reason being is there may be a potential environmental contamination on one of the parcels of property. Lawyers for DOTD, EPA, and DEQ are trying to work that out now, and hopefully that will be resolved within the next month or two, and we can move forward with that project. The Plan B, the city engineering department has identified several concrete panel replacements, some overlay projects and whatnot throughout the city that would make up the difference for their 4.6. The remainder of those funds for Bossier City and Bossier Parish, we'd have to go back and identify some additional projects that could be done with those. The next page shows you a kind of timeline, and this shows you how quick we have to spend these monies and how quick we have to work with them. We're really held to some pretty strict, hard guidelines. Again, we have to have 95% preliminary plans done by the middle of June, and that's fast to get projects selected, projects put into what we call our Transportation Improvement Program, to get federal highways and DOTD to say, yes, those are good projects, yes, they are authorized to use this money, and yes, you can spend this money on those projects, and then to work them through the process. Most of the reason that a lot of jurisdictions are doing the overlay concrete panel, the maintenance type projects is because you can do them quickly. You don't have to go through a lot of the environmental process. No right-of-way you have to purchase, no utilities you have to relocate, no extra work that you have to do with it. It's just clean and simple. Tear up, replace, put new down. Last page shows the transit money that the urban area received, roughly $4.7 million in transit funds. We have basically elected to start purchasing some CNG, that's compressed natural gas buses, to put in a CNG fueling station and work towards effort of replacing, over a long term, to replace all the buses in the area as CNG clean air buses. That will help us in the long term with air quality problems, with other EPA problems we may be facing down the line. With that, open up to questions.
Commissioner Baker?
Yes. You may have said it, I don't know. Back on the second page where you're talking about the highway funding distributed, and you said 67% goes directly to the state. 50% of that 67% was dedicated. The other 17%, where does that go to?
There's 67% that goes directly to the state, 30% that gets direct sub-allocated to the MPOs, and 3% towards the enhancement program. Of that 67%, they were held that 50% of that money had to be
Dedicated.
I'm trying to remember the exact words because it's not dedicated. They use two different words for the MPO money and for the state money. 50% of that money had to be awarded within 120 days. That means projects advertised, a contractor selected, a contract negotiated, and a contract signed within 120 days. That's almost next to impossible. The original legislation was 90 days, and several of the states said by our state law, we just literally can't meet that deadline. You have to do something different.
So they already have something planned for the other 70%?
No. That's what kind of rose a ruckus in Baton Rouge a few months ago, roughly a month and a half ago. There were a few projects that the DOTD was wanting to do with the rest of that money, both of them in South Louisiana, and projects that had not previously been on the priority program, DOTD's priority program. And legislators kind of questioned how did these two projects suddenly, one, appear and suddenly jump that high on the list. Especially since the state had originally submitted a list of about, I want to say it was about $1.3 billion worth of projects, and those two projects were not on that original $1.3 billion list. So they're revisiting the rest of that money and how it will be allocated and spread. One thing that you must remember is that the law requires that it be spread graphically. It has to be, there's lots of stipulations of how they can spend the money and where they can spend the money.
Do you think we'd have opportunity to get some of it?
We hope that we'll get a little more of it. I think the real possible potential for more highway money, it comes from that discretionary program that I spoke of at first, the $1.5 billion in discretionary monies. The state has agreed that the only project that the state would support for submission under that discretionary program is I-49 North. They're going to ask, right now we're anticipating asking for all the money that we need left, roughly $230 million to get the entire project completed. But again, we don't know all the stipulations that are going to go with that money yet. Projects have to be between $20 million and $300 million and have to have a national, regional, and local significance to qualify for that money. That's all we know to date, which means I-49s, I-69s, possibly some I-10 and I-20 rehab work. Those would be cutting it, but the 49s would definitely fit that money.
The second thing on your Plan B, it says 4.6 million Shreveport. It says citywide concert panel replacement. I'm an arts person. I would say I'd take that 4.6 million for some arts, but we wouldn't do anything about placing a concert panel. I don't know what a concert panel is. That was just a joke. Thank you so much.
Commissioner Jenkins?
Thank you, Madam President. Once again, I brought this out during our work session on Monday, and I've had a couple more days to stew about it, to be honest with you. I'm the last person in the world that wants to criticize efforts to bring money into our area, and I know a lot of work has went into that. I also understand that there are a lot of deadlines and a whole lot of red tape that's attached to qualify for the funds. But I'm still concerned about the fact that it doesn't appear to me thus far in the reporting that has come before us that there is an emphasis on creating jobs and putting people back to work. And I felt like the stimulus plan had that as a goal. Now, maybe some information like that is out there and just hasn't made its way to us. Do you know anything on that?
Yeah,
Let me finish this and I'm going to give you an opportunity to answer, because what I'm saying is I know these are some worthy projects. I know people are working hard. I know that's a lot of money. $700,000 is nothing to just sneeze at. And I know trying to get those projects done is at the top of everybody's priority list. But I don't want to lose sight of the jobs, putting people back to work, because I believe that's what the stimulus plan was all about. It was not about buying more concrete and asphalt, and it wasn't about giving money to contractors who are already getting parish and city jobs. So maybe there's some information out there like that. Do you know anything about it?
Yeah, what I can say is I feel your frustration 20 times over, because what aggravates me more than anything about this program is exactly what you're saying. It was sold to the general public. This roughly $1 trillion package was sold to the public as, we're going to put people back to work, we're going to rebuild America, we're going to put all this money towards infrastructure projects, we're going to rebuild roads, rebuild highways, and do all this work. Yet, when you look at what the money is to do that, first off, the money is only 6% of that entire $1 trillion to go towards infrastructure. Then when they put all the regulations and stipulations of how you can spend the money, where you can spend the money, what you can do with the money, it comes down to a very, very short list of things that you can do with it. And I know exactly what you're feeling, because it is. It's very frustrating that the general public was sold that we're going to put people back to work, we're going to create new jobs, and we're going to do all this work, and yet that's not the stipulations and the details that go into the package as was sold. Literally, when we go through the list of here's the roads we can spend the money on, here's the types of projects we can do, here's the time frame that we have to get them advertised, selected, the engineering work done, environmental work, any of that type of work to done, you get a very, very short list of projects that are available to do.
Have we tried to engage maybe the contractors, the private contractors themselves who are going to be involved with this, to see if any jobs going to come out of it, or are they going to prevent any layoffs as a result of getting some of this money? I think the concept...
I'll tell you exactly, I'll give you the words that Ron Norwood has used to me several times, the city engineer. He wishes that he would rather go with the Plan B, because he said he's got contractors out there just begging for work right now to do, they're running out of money, to do the general maintenance type things, to do the concrete panel replacements, to do the overlay projects and whatnot. They're running out of money to do that with. And according to the engineer, if he could do it, he'd do the Plan B rather than do the 49 North project. That's kind of turned into somewhat of a political thing, I guess you could say. But again, when you look at the grand scheme of it all, it is a small amount of money. And then when you go down that list of what you can do with it, where you can spend it, what streets you can spend it on, and again, what streets you already have money allocated towards doing something on, or a project you just did, or when that project would be ready to go. The list, y'all can attest, that list gets real short real quick.
Well,
And
there are going to be some other requests being made. I might understand that additional stimulus money is being requested.
the states, each state will have an opportunity at the 1-year time frame to request, when I stipulated that there was, of that 67% that went directly to the state, they had to obligate 50% of that money within 120 days. They had to have 50% of that money under contract within 120 days. If they did not accomplish that goal, what was left between what they let and their 50%, that money goes back into a pot. And at the end of the first year time frame, other states can apply for that money to bring down, and again, that new money that they would get split in the same fashion. Portion of it direct to the state, portion of it direct to the NPOs, portion of it towards enhancement and whatnot. But you don't know whether that's going to happen or not till after a year.
Yeah,
The 1.5 billion, again, you're held to, a project has to be 20 million to 300 million. It has to have national, regional, and local significance to it, not one or the other. It has to meet all three of those categories. Other than that, we don't know the stipulations yet for that. They haven't made that available to anybody yet.
well, I just sincerely,
We don't even know how to apply for that money yet.
okay. I just sincerely feel, and I'm saying this to my colleagues up there, because we're the elected officials that represent these people. And I think we're going to be able to say we bought a lot of asphalt, we bought a lot of concrete into this area, which is a good thing, and we fixed some roads. I think all that's good. But I think all that's going to come up short when we start talking about creating jobs and putting people back to work, which is what this stimulus money was supposed to do. I just don't see it as being a part of the goals. I just don't want to accept any excuse as to why it's not a part of the goals, especially from the parish standpoint. I think we need to get involved in it. Madam President, I want to compliment you on getting an ad hoc committee in place so that we, as the elected representatives of people, could be a little bit more involved in the process. And this is not a criticism to those who are working and getting this done. Please don't take my comments out of context. But I do think one day we're the ones going to have to stand up and say, you know, did you put people back to work? Did you create any jobs? And what I'm hearing right now is the answer to that is going to be no. So let us think about that, and let us be certain that we're being involved and that our voices are being heard, and the voices of the people that we are representing is being heard. Because it's not just about asphalt and concrete. It's about putting some of these people back to work and getting them some relief, and that's what they're looking for.
My honest gut feeling about the whole program is that over a 3 to 5 year time frame, each state may see 2 to 3 projects extra get done within that time frame that would not have gotten done within that time frame. That's not a whole lot.
That's projects. What I'm saying, the thing that I'm talking about is, you know, it's a complete report. There's not a single category in here that says, this is what we project in the area of creating jobs, putting people back to work. There are a lot of good figures, and I love it. I don't have a problem with that. It's fixing some roads and projects. I think that's wonderful too. But you have a single category in here, and then it came to us Monday with a report that didn't have a single category in it that gave any projections about jobs, about putting people back to work. And I'm just saying, I think, you know, that needs to be a part of our concentration.
Right. Our emphasis has been on the highway and transit money because that's where our primary role at COG is. And that's, to me, why it's very frustrating that, just like you're saying, there's $1 trillion out there, but less than 6% of it goes towards those efforts. So it is a frustration. I know what you feel, and I understand it.
Well, thank you for understanding.
How to answer that and how to fix it. All right.
Thank you for understanding me, and thank you, Madam President.
Commissioner Lynn?
For the last several years, there's been talk of extending the Amtrak from Marshall, Texas into Bossier City, and this $1.3 billion for Amtrak Is there any collaboration with East Texas and Bossier City as to bringing that to happening?
Yes, and the money that would actually go for that is the high-speed rail portion. It wouldn't actually fall under the Amtrak portion. The Amtrak portion was more to help further subsidize the efforts that are going on. Their budget got cut quite a bit last year, so they put some more money back in there for them. We have been working with basically my counterparts between here and the Dallas area towards that effort. And there's actually a meeting in I think it's in Marshall this weekend. We have a joint MOU that we've been working towards to help foster and develop that corridor. Senator Hutchinson has gotten some engineering and planning money allocated towards that. If that engineering process and planning process can get completed before the time frame runs out to apply for these funds, we will definitely be applying for those funds.
So would that be replacing what is there with a high-speed rail from Bossier to?
The intent is to do what they call dual track, to lay a second line of track using the existing railroad right-of-way that's there. You lay a second track next to it, parallel to it. That gives you the real ability to do the high speed and to get better connection. The real problem that Amtrak has in most areas of the country, either other than in the East Coast, is they run on other people's lines. And if the other person's train comes along, they have to divert and get off until their freight train goes through, and then they can get back on. And that's why their scheduling is really bad. That's why in this area we're looking at the dual track, lay a second line of track there, and then they can run strictly on that one set of tracks.
What is the likelihood of this happening?
I think it's getting much better than it was in the past. I think what ultimately will be one of the best selling points for the corridor is it's about 1.9 million a mile for rail versus 15 million a mile for interstate. A lot cheaper. The feasibilities have been done and prove out well between the Shreveport-Bossier area and the Dallas-Fort Worth area. The real connection, the long-term connection we're looking at is basically what we call the Meridian to Marshall connection. It fills that gap that Amtrak doesn't have. The hard part is the piece from here over to Meridian, because the ridership and whatnot is just not there. I hope that answers your question.
Not really.
But that was a great answer.
It's better than it has been in the past. I think with the push that Senator Hutchinson from Texas is giving it and the support that she's giving, 10, 15 years down the line, yeah. I wish it'd be sooner, but I'll be overly optimistic.
Thank you, Kurt.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
We're going to defer the other report until the end of the meeting.
Next item, Mrs. Spears.
Well, you do have a communique from the Lakeview Waterworks District asking you to appoint Mary Talent to replace J.D. Campbell. Board.
Well, I haven't talked with anybody, so I just rather wait and talk to people first.
Okay. Commissioner Dominique?
Just had, I want to give an update on the Park and Recreation. At this time, our Park and Recreation Committee met before the meeting today, and we had a good update about our current Park and Recreation. Larry Raymond had passed out a information sheet on our parks, how many parks we have, where they're located, what district, how many acres, just different information concerning our parks. And I know we've got some extra ones. If you weren't on the committee and you'd like to get a package, Larry would be happy to give you one, I believe. Also, we talked about doing a bus tour, which we will do scheduled for June 8th at 9 o'clock. What we're going to do is all of the commissioners that wish to will be able to attend the tour. We're going to have one half a day. Our first day, we will go up north and look at all the parks in the northern part of the parish, and then we will schedule another tour sometime later in June or maybe early July to go look at the other parks in the parish. But basically it's just going to be kind of a field day for each commissioner to go out and look at the different parks and see what we are actually doing in our park system. It's going to be scheduled for June 8th, and Larry's going to try to get us a bus, and we'll all go up then. If anybody wishes to go, we'll be sending you more information, but just want to let you know that we are doing that. So mark your calendars for June 8th if you want to go to that. That's it.
Commissioner McCullough?
Commissioner Dominic, were you not able to acquire a description of District 2's industrial park?
Well, this is, this didn't have to do with industrial parks. It was our park and recreation, and it was the facilities that was maintained by, if I'm correct, the parks. I'm talking about like Earl Williamson Park, of course, Downs Park, those parks. It wasn't talking about the industrial parks. It was the only thing we're doing with our recreation parks in each one of the districts.
So the rest of the parks that you're going to be touring, it won't include the industrial parks either?
I don't think we have that on our schedule. It would just be the park and recreation system.
That I maybe request, Mr. Wilson, that this be included in the tour of the parks, because I have some issues that are going to be coming up in the future in regards to this park. Could this be made a part of the tour?
I don't know, I guess we'd have to have another meeting, but we decided, because what it was is the park, if it has to do with parks and recreation.
We can't decide at this meeting to include North Shreveport Industrial Park just for a tour? That falls under Larry Raymond's jurisdiction.
I wouldn't think it would.
It wouldn't?
It doesn't.
Okay.
That's going to be a different thing.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Next item, Mrs. Spears?
Next, your visitor portion.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Bacon, second by Commissioner Jenkins, to suspend the rules to allow visitors to address the commission without exception. I have cards here. I'm going to do the citizens first, okay, before we have the folks that are printed on the agenda. Mr. Ray McCann. Mr. McCann, if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
I don't hear very well.
Okay. Well, let me say I have your address as 3417 Bruce Drive in Shreveport. Okay.
I'm here not to complain. I want to tell you what happened to me in Lakeview subdivision. I woke up the morning after the storm. I couldn't see my driveway. I couldn't see the road. And I have 5 kids, and they all showed up at my place with chainsaws to work. We had about 14 big oak trees down in my front yard and back. So they went to work cutting it up into pieces, and through that time was, chaos. And we started hauling the stuff out by trailer, and then something happened. The parish moved in with trucks, pickups, machinery, cleaned up the stuff that we'd put on the road, hauled it out for us. And it was a very, very efficient movement on the part of the commission. I don't know where the word come from. I know it had to come from the higher up to give permission to do this work. But I'm going to tell you, you can be proud of the men, the foremen, and the people that was doing the work is a credit to this commission. And I wouldn't want anything less than praise for them. I'm not here to complain, I'm here to give praise for the work that they did for me. And I've been in the Lakeview subdivision for 56 years. I got 5 kids. They all worked diligently for 2 days. One was Waco, one from Austin, Texas, and they had stuff scattered everywhere. And again, I want to appreciate the fact that the people that worked for the commission did an excellent job for all of the people, not just one, but for all. I don't know how to express it. I'm not a public speaker. I'm 91 years old. I've been here a long time. I worked for the police jury 8 years of my life. And public speaking is not my thing. If I pulled a voodoo anywhere, I'd like to be excused for it.
Doing pretty good.
Good job. I'm not going to take up a lot of your time, but I'd like for the praise of the workmen, the foreman, the people that were doing the actual pickup, be commended for their work. That's my mission to be here. Of course, I also want to express the concern of my kids that they had for me. They were there for me at a quick time. I appreciate you listening to my little story, and if you need any further information on Lakeview subdivision, I think I could give it to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCann. We really appreciate you coming by. Mr. McCann.
I also speak for a lot of my neighbors and friends. I've got some out there. Most of them are friends.
Mr. McCann, we're going to let you sit down, but we do have some commissioners that have comments, okay?
Okay.
All righty. Commissioner Dominique?
Mr. McCann, I appreciate you coming here today. It's nice to have someone come up here and give us some good things that have happened in the parish, and I really appreciate that. It makes us feel a lot better as commissioners and for the guys that work for the commission. I think our public works do a good job. And Mr. Wilson, I would like for you to be sure and tell them about Mr. McCann coming up here and congratulating them. Yes, I will. Be sure and send his sentiments to them. It'll make them feel a lot better. And I'll be sure and do the same when I see my guys. I appreciate it. Yes, sir, you will.
I'm personally acquainted with some of your people yet here. Like I say, it's been retired when I was 65. So, you know, all the old people are gone from up here. I don't know why I'm still here, but I'm
All still here. I thank you for that. Thank you. Just keep on watching the sunrise and stuff.
I'm sorry.
Commissioner McCullough?
Yes, Mr. McCann, I too want to thank you for coming forth and expressing your gratitude as the representative of the Lakeview community. We had several constituents as yourself that have actually called and expressed their gratitude for the great job that not only our work crews but this administration has done, and I too as your representative would like to personally thank Mr. Wilson and the work crews. Again, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the time that you give me. And again, appreciate all the men and was working. I know it had to come from a higher authority. That's why I'm here. I can express my thoughts to them, but I also want to give credit to the people that authorized the work to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. And you're a great public speaker, by the way. Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Gary Paul is in the audience. Gary? He is from the North Camp. He's one of the foremen that did the work up there.
Okay.
I want to commend him publicly, so thank you, Gary.
Mr. Michael Tiernan. You would state your name and address for the record.
First off, I'm going to say I feel like I've been set up. My name is Mike McTiernan, 174 Rustic Way, Shreveport, Louisiana. My problem is just the opposite of this gentleman.
Okay.
And then most of you already know what the problem is. Once again, on the south side of town, we have been flooded out. Once again, I'm here to plead and beg, get some attention going for Mayor Road, that we need some help. Now, you people need to go off of Mayo Road and check your bridge out, because it's been washed out once again. That costs you money. It ends up in my backyard, and I'm tired of it. I got a letter here from Mr. Glass where it says that they're going to address concerns. He said that the survey under 49 was done, and the problem was on Mr. Mayo's property because the servitude was just a little bit low there, and there's not enough water pressure to get it through. Folks, that's hogwash. There's a little thing called I-49 that runs along there, and it's probably the best dam they've got built in Caddo Parish. It keeps backing up. We call it the Pennant Pond, you call it Shreve Estates Pond. And the same letter says that they dug the pond out. I never saw any equipment on there digging that pond out. I saw them digging some stuff along the edge. Okay, that didn't make that pond any deeper. What it did is it made it smaller. That pond is less than 1/3 the size of it was 2 years ago. They can make it deeper, but they sure as heck made it smaller. And I can prove that by Googling the pond from 4 or 5 years ago. I got a picture of it in this book. They didn't do anything there. They raised the level of the land on the backside so the water would get in the pond quicker, so it would go across the road into our backyard quicker. So the bridge is gone. The man that lives right below that bridge was going to be here, but he's not here. It washed a tree out this past weekend. Fell on his truck. My house flooded. His garage flooded. This is the same reoccurring problem that we have had since '92. We have addressed it. We have asked you people about it. We have met with you before. You don't do anything. Now, I just heard a gentleman compliment you on the parish's fine work for picking stuff up on the north side of town. How come you can do that and you can't take care of this problem? Anybody got an answer? I didn't think so. I am requesting now, and I don't know if this is the right way to do it or not, but I am requesting a field trip for you people to come down and see what the problem is. You're not going to realize it until you get there and look at it. We can get all the reports you want to put out, we can get all the surveys you want to put out, but folks, the water just keeps backing up. It's not going anywhere. Now, is there anything that I'm doing wrong in requesting a field trip? Is there something that I need to do other than just do it right here? Somebody please tell me.
Who's your commissioner, Mr.
Ma'am?
Who's your commissioner?
Mr. Thibodeau, I'm sorry.
I am.
Okay.
Will you take care of that, Mr. Thibodeau?
Well, I know that we've been there before.
You have been there, but these people haven't.
Well, no, the whole commission has not, and I don't know that the whole commission would go. But I have been there, the public works people have been there, and, you know, when we spoke on the phone the other day, you know, you stated that you realized that this was a problem created by the state, and it was going to have to be the state.
The Shreve land development problem is not something created by state. It's something it must have been approved by the Metropolitan Planning Commission, which is Caddo Parish, because they got electricity out there now.
But like you said, the biggest problem is that I-49, which acts as a huge dam for that whole area.
Well, I'm going to address that in just a second, if I'm allowed the time.
The letter you were reading from, was that the last letter that Mr. Glass had sent you?
December 1st, 2008, and it is from Mr. Glass. And it says in paragraph 4,
It was determined that the pond was lowered, but the dam elevation did not change. Who determined that the pond was lowered? I don't know. There was no dredging operation there. I mean, you can't lower a pond just by sticking a steam shower.
I'm glad to invite the entire commission to come and look at the problem, but I can't force them to come.
Well, I'll get Carl to come. If he don't come, I know where he lives. One last thing about this, okay? The subdivision obviously has been approved, like I said, because they're building houses and there's electricity run out there, okay? And they've got a rendering plant right up next to Mayo Road. I mean, it is within 6 to 10 feet of Mayo Road. It's an open top rendering plant. Water washed over the dam into the rendering plant, and now all that sewage that could be in there, because there's not any yet, nobody's living there yet, but the sewage that's going to be in there is going to wash down that creek bed again. Somebody needs to look at that and do something about that. Thank you for your time.
Gary McCaskill? Oh, okay. Do you have anything else, Commissioner Thibodeau? I still have your name up here.
I'll get Mr. McTerman in with Mr. Glass.
Okay.
And hopefully with somebody from the state, because the eventual solution to this problem is going to have to be with the state.
It stays the same.
Okay, we have charter school representatives from SABIS.
How am I supposed to know it's up?
Can I turn my 3 minute vote
How am I supposed to know that?
It comes up on her now.
Charter school representatives from SABIS. And who's all speaking? You're just
Madam
going to
President, I'm
introduce
Guard
everybody?
Waite,
Okay.
Guard Waite, 705 Cobblestone Drive, Shreveport. And good day to you and commissioners and parish staff. Got to speak to some of you before the meeting. It's good to see all of you. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. We represent Shreveport Charter School, Inc., which was recently granted by the state the opportunity to operate Linwood Middle School. It will now be Linwood Public Charter School, effective in August 17th is when it opens. We take over July 1st. We wanted to tell you all, because you are political and community leaders, just what it is that we're doing, and if you have any questions, we would love for you to address them to us. The state took over 10 schools in Caddo Parish. They finally decided, after many months of deliberation, the Bessie Board decided to let Caddo Parish Public Schools operate 8 of those under memos of understanding. They took the other 2 and they took bids from groups like ours to operate those 2 as charter schools. Those were Linwood and Lanier middle schools. We got the bid from the state for Linwood Middle School, which is now Linwood Public Charter School. We didn't take those schools. The state did. But we are grateful for the opportunity, and I want to talk to you today about opportunity for hundreds and thousands of our children, because we represent and we have hired SABIS Educational Systems to run Linwood for us. Our board is a voluntary board. Reverend Willie Phillips is a member of our board. There are 5 others besides us. We're volunteers and we make the policy, just like the Caddo Parish School Board makes the policy for Caddo Parish Public Schools. And we have hired SABIS Educational Systems to run Linwood for us. That's what they do professionally. They are a 123-year-old company which operates 61 schools on 4 continents around the world in 15 different countries. They have 47,000 plus students. and personnel totaling over 4,000. They've been running schools for 123 years. This is Mr. Robert Giordano, who's the lead SABIS person for setting up the school here that will operate right where it is, right there on West 70th Street in Shreveport. We're talking about opportunity. We're not criticizing, we're not talking about what's happened in the past beyond saying that these schools were rated unacceptable for 5 consecutive years, and that's the reason we're involved. That's the only reason there's any charter school involvement. It's the only reason there's any MOU between Caddo Parish Public Schools and the state Board of Education. Many of our students, perhaps as many as 40% of students in certain schools will never graduate from high school. Now I want you to remember that. And I want to contrast that with the record of SABIS educational systems. I'll talk to you about Springfield, Massachusetts, where they took over a K-5 school in Springfield, which is 150,000 population, very much like Shreveport in the demographics. The school was like 80+% low income and free lunch students. It was the second worst school in the district. They took it over as a K-5, they immediately made it a K-7, and then they added a grade per year until it became a high school. Every year since that school became a K-12, 100% of their graduates qualified for the college entrance exam. They passed the college entrance exam. Now, not everyone of them went to college, but they all qualified to go to college. Everyone, 100%. 1,400 students. Last year, the record was so dramatic that last year in Massachusetts, the authorities made an exception and raised the limit of 25% of those students to receive full 4-year scholarships. They raised it to 40%. And so where we have 40% of our kids that never graduate in certain schools in Caddo Parish, they had 40% of their students that got a 100% 4-year scholarship. Now that's the SABIS education system at work. The same thing happened in Flint, Michigan. They took over a school, they turned it eventually into a high school, and for the last 4 years, ever since it became a high school, 100% of its graduates have qualified for college. Now that's a stark contrast. That's the opportunity that we are offering in Caddo Parish. We want you to know about it, because you'll hear a lot of things from a lot of people who don't understand how charter schools work. But we wanted you to understand what we're doing and be able to answer any questions that you might have. I'm going to leave it at that, and I'll ask Mr. Reverend Phillips. He's the pastor at God's Ways Ministries, fellow Rotarian, friend of mine, and someone I think a lot of. I'd like him to say a few words about his perception of what SABIS has to offer for Caddo Parish and for our students. Willie?
Good evening. Are we going outside the rules?
Just the president then.
Okay, someone else about to speak with your group?
Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine.
Oh, yes,
As long as you give his name and address.
Yes, yes.
Good evening. My name is Willie Herman Phillips. My address is 1204 Hassett Drive here in the city of Shreveport. As I stand here and look at the commission, I see former student, classmate, I see in-laws, I see former teachers in the room, and I'm involved because we are here for one reason and one reason only. The quality of education for the students in our area needs to be improved. There are some challenges that need to be faced. I'm not here to promote SABIS or Edison. I'm here for the students. Now, it's no secret that the students that we're speaking of, the ones that have been historically challenged, a lot of them are being left behind, and something needs to be done. One thing that I would like to point out is that since this came up about the charter schools, the school board has stepped forward, and there are some changes that have already taken place.
And I like that spirit of, I hate to use the word competition, but I like that spirit of competition because the community, the parish, the state, and eventually the nation and the world will be impacted by the quality of education being improved. And this is a good way to start it. We're not trying to challenge the board, the school district, the parish, anything like that. We want the students to get a better education. I'll say this. A couple of years ago, one of my students was the valedictorian of a middle school, and I've had him since he was a little kid. And being the valedictorian of that middle school, he reads at about at that time, he was reading at about a 6th grade level. There are a lot of kids in the neighborhoods, and I have relatives that are principals in this district. There are great educators in this system, but by and large, there are challenges that need to be faced, and if we don't do it, somewhere down the line, we're going to be left behind. The mayor's vision for this city is to be the next great city of the South. That vision can be realized, but we need to educate everyone. The Sabbath system, the charter system, does not select students. All students are welcome, but we are very particular about the educators. And that is why I became a member of this board. That is why I'm standing here today. If there were challenges that needed to be met, we wouldn't be having this time to stand before you and present what we think will become a turning point for the educational system in the city and the state, and everyone will realize that a lot of these students that will grow up to become adults that would formerly have been liabilities will now become assets because of the turnaround in the education system. And that's the only reason that I'm a part of this movement. I thank you for your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam President. If you allow us just another moment, I'd like to introduce Robert Giordano, who is, if you will just overlook his accent, he's a great guy. He's a major in the Army. He is the lead man with Sabas International in developing new schools. He is from upstate New York, but we're acclimated. He says y'all every once in a while now. And so please welcome Robert Giordano.
Good afternoon, Madam President, distinguished commissioners, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I stand before you humbled at the task in front of you, or in front of us, with our school, but honored for the opportunity. I stand before you with very, very short, almost 55 years. It's been a hallmark since the case of Brown versus Board of Education today. It's coming up very, very soon. Yet, that case, a landmark case in our nation's history, was to stop segregation in our schools and to create an educational system that gave every young man, young woman the opportunity to be successful and be a contributing member of our society. You know, commissioners, just as well as I do, that has not been the case. That in fact, there is a segregated system, not only here in Shreveport, but in urban cities throughout our country. As our president has said, now is the time to step up for accountability and to make a change. We did not go out and ask for this. The state came in and took over the school. What we're saying is that we have done this successfully in other states around the nation, and we're here to do it here in Shreveport. When 52% of our nation's African American young men and women are not graduating from high school, when the vast majority, over 70% of our students in Linwood Middle School are failing to perform at a basic education level, there's a problem. We have an opportunity here to stop that problem. And to say, you know what, it's not the state's fault, it's not the parents' fault. You're paying us to educate our students. Students are with us for 8 hours a day. Parents are working, just trying to put a roof over their heads. They can barely make those payments, but you're paying us to educate our students. So the responsibility for education lies with us, does it not? How can a mom who's working 2 jobs, just trying to put food on the table, spend time educating their son or daughter after school? They can't. The reality of the situation is they can't. So the blame is going to stop. We're going to take responsibility. Every single student that wants to have a strong education can come to us, regardless of the previous background, and it's free. And you don't have to pay $12,000 or $15,000 to come to our school like you would if you're going in Minnesota or in Frankfurt or in England. It's free. We're a highly academic program, however, and please make no mistake, any student can come, but the academic standards are rigorous, and so our expectations are high. We're here today, I am very, very humbled here today to speak in front of you, but we need your help and your support. The information that's being put out, unfortunately, has only been partially true. And I heard students say that we can't go to that school. That's not true. Any student can come or apply. And in fact, for the month of May, any student who goes to Linwood now has first choice to get into the school. All they need to do is come out and fill out an application. So any student can come, okay? This school is not a school that's going to cream students. There's another rumor, and it's important for you as community leaders to understand this. You know, it will take me 30 seconds to explain. We're not a magnet school, so you don't have to test in to come to our school. You know what happens to a student that cannot test in to our magnet schools here, right? What happens? They get left behind. You don't have to do that. You can come to our school as long as you want to have a strong education. We're going to educate you. So I would encourage you to please just speak to your constituents. And we're going to have a public meeting on the 13th of May at Union Springs Baptist Church at 6:30 p.m. Parents can come to attend that meeting, and we're going to talk in detail about the academic program. I want to thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for all your hard work.
That sounds so much like a Yankee. Commissioner McCullough?
Yes, before you be seated, I've heard a couple of things here that I happen to be hired or an employee with Lanier Middle School. That was one of the two schools, Linwood and Lanier, that was taken over by charter. And maybe you can explain, because this is a question that I've had over and over again, out of the 10 schools, and I hear you talk about the failure rate in all of the schools, but amongst the 10 schools, the two schools that the state chose to turn over to charter were the two highest performing schools. And I'm proud to say that I'm an employee with Lanier. We're the two highest performing schools. So why would, if the state was looking out for the best interest of the community, of the students, why would they choose the two highest performing schools?
Ms. McCullough, we do not know.
Okay.
And we don't know why it took them 4 months to decide after the plan was put together, and we don't know why we have not yet been allowed access to the schools or to the superintendent. There is much about the system we don't understand. We're frustrated just as you are. However, that said, it is a fact that Linwood and Lanier both had been rated academically unacceptable for 5 consecutive years, and there is now an opportunity for those schools to have a world-class college prep curriculum, and any child that doesn't get that opportunity is missing the boat. And so I understand what you're saying, that among the 10...
Numbers show that within the last 2 or 3 years, Lanier...
And there has been improvement, yes ma'am, there has been improvement.
These were the schools that the state
Yes.
chose. And I'm hearing in reference to the failure rate, you know, I think you gave 70% African Americans. But what you have to realize, a large measure of these African Americans are from minority communities, poverty-stricken.
Yes, they are.
And those parents that are not, you said that it's not the parents' fault. I don't agree, because it takes a whole village to raise a child. You say it's not the fault of the parent. You know, the few parents that are working, those that are not, they're either out on the street, hooked on drugs or something of that nature. So we have to allow the parent to take some of the burden.
Well,
some responsibility, because basically it starts at home as far as education goes. And being a teacher myself, special needs, we just don't get the parental support from our parent, and maybe you all can...
We do recognize that. And
you all can start with, it's very difficult.
Yes.
You know, when and my own personal children attended the magnet schools, and these magnet schools have funding up to $80,000 or $100,000 in their general budget, whereby where I am now. When I first, when I left Bossier coming to Caddo, Lanier had maybe $200 or $300 in their general. And, you know, I had children of my own that attended Montessori, and every day, every other day, Montessori is soliciting funds for something that's going on.
Sure.
You can't get $2 from our students.
Right.
And you can't send a note home and say send $2 to support.
Right.
It just doesn't happen. So to say that it's not the parent's fault, you know, I can't go along with that. I wish you all the luck in the world, but I still have some concerns, Mr. Phillips, which is a dear friend of my family's, the fact, and from this community, the MLK community, that if our parent would get more involved, our children would do much better, and I hope you're very successful at getting our parent involved a little bit more.
Ms. McCullough, your comments are very appropriate, and one of the reasons why the SABIS education system has worked in communities like ours and in schools like we're talking about is because the very first thing they do is make a contract with the parents. They contract with the parents, and they try to frame and put it in perspective how important it is for the student to have an environment for study, a time when the TV's turned off, that the parent have access to the school and to the teachers and to the administrators of the school to keep up with how the student is doing.
Mr. Wade.
Yes, ma'am.
Wyatt, I'm so sorry.
Yes, we could go on all day.
The commissioners, yes, because we're definitely not here to debate education
Right.
policy, trust me.
I understand.
Well, I'm not debating, but I hope you're successful at
Thank
getting
you
the
very
parent
much.
involved. That's going
Thank
to
you.
be
Mr.
so
Wyatt.
important and so significant.
There are a few other commissioners that have questions. Commissioner Lynn?
Right.
Yes, sir.
The enrollment office, is that the same address and telephone number that a person would have sent a application for employment for a
Yes,
teacher?
that's
Thank you
right.
very much. That's all,
Yes.
Madam President.
Thank you.
Commissioner Pearson?
I'm happy to see my former student.
Oh, I thought he said he had taught you.
And he did. He had David Barr taught me physics when I was a youngster coming out of college at Lanier, and they were both exceptional students, and I applaud them for being involved in this project. I have to let you know right off the top, I'm not a fan of I don't want to debate the issue, we'll do that some other time. I'm not a fan of charter schools. Number one, you say it's not selective, but it's selective enrollment. You said that you said not picking students, but not everyone can come. That was a statement someone made. A statement was made that everybody's not going to college, but then your curriculum is college prep. So then that means not everybody is going to be able to go to Linwood Charter School. My concern is, and I'm going to try to say it real briefly, I know we don't have time. My concern is that, I'd be happy to come to you and talk to you about it. Schools don't take exams. Children do. And the fact that Linwood and Lanier have been unacceptable because the children took the exam. But now, here we are, getting ready to make charter schools out of both of them. But the school system is going to have to develop 2 new middle schools to accommodate those folks that's not eligible to go to the charter school. If it were, and I don't know what the procedures are, but if it would work, your test to me would be if every child who goes to Linwood now would have to go to Linwood next year, including special ed children, including every child, then if you improve that situation, then you would prove to me that the charter system works. But as long as it's skewed, and skewed may not be the correct word, and as long as every child is not zoned into that school who's previously been zoned in that school, then you may not say it's a magnet school, but only kids and parents who want their children to have a top-notch college prep type atmosphere would be accepted. You said they have to apply.
But the only thing they have to do to apply is just give us their information. They don't have to qualify, they simply have to express their choice. They have the first choice.
Understood you.
They have the first choice. The only reason they wouldn't come, Commissioner Pearson, the only reason they wouldn't come is if their parents chose otherwise. And frankly, these other schools that were created to compete for those children. It wasn't our idea for those other two schools to be created. They were created to compete for those children.
I understand, but they would not have anything to compete for if those children were zoned into those schools.
They are zoned.
They have not choice.
They are zoned.
They don't have a choice to go. Right now, the kids that attend Linwood are zoned into Linwood, and that's where they have to go to school. And so, I'm just saying, I hope you are successful. I know
Thank you.
I'm a good friend of, and I respect in all of you, but I know Pastor Phillips and I know David Ball real close. David and I share birthdays. And so, I mean, I hope you are successful, but now the jury's still out. Well, you know,
I understand, and there are a lot of questions to be resolved.
and I wish you the most success. Be happy to come and have an exchange with you at the
Love to
office
talk to
or
you.
some other place.
Yes.
Let
Let me address one other point. The college prep curriculum, in my way of thinking, is a real bonus. If a child completes a college prep education and does not go to college, they still have the preparation. They can still do the math and the science. They can still do the English language arts. They still can speak a foreign language. And every student in this school is going to be taught Spanish every day, every class level. And that's part of the cyber system. That even if they don't go to college, if they go to a tech school, or if they go into business for themselves, or if they take a job and don't go past high school, at least they will have those basic skills that prepared them to go to college, even if they chose not to. It's great preparation for life.
School in my wife's school is called Spanish too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Baker?
I just want to thank you all for coming out and sharing with us the information. I do encourage all of the commissioners to get in touch with them and talk to them and find out more about their program that they have. I had an opportunity to go myself and tour one of their charter schools in New Orleans, and it is a great curriculum. It's not, and I don't see where it's going to really be a big total challenge for the kids if they want to really learn and get a good education. So please,
Thank you.
I encourage you all to please get in touch with them and talk to them and find out more about it and get your questions answered from them versus hearing some of the things that you're hearing out in the community.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I have a couple of questions. But tell me your name again. I don't want to say the guy
Giordano.
from New York. Mr.
Giordano, just like Sam Giordano.
Right, that's easy to remember for me. You all have other schools in Louisiana? Where are they? New Orleans. Okay.
It's
How many
it's
programs?
the Milestone, Sabas Milestone Academy. It's
So it's one school?
Yes.
Okay. Do you all work with, I think he may be the superintendent in New York, Joe Klein?
Was right, excuse me.
Okay. Well, you know, one thing is clear is that I know that President Obama is determined to expand the charter school system throughout the United States. There is a meeting in Washington, D.C. today just discussing the achievement gap.
Yes.
Significant achievement gap, the high dropout rates and so on and so forth that are occurring in public education system. So I know that is something that, you know, even though Shreveport is just now experiencing this through the state takeover, but it's actually something that is coming, and it's going to be coming pretty rapidly, not because schools are just low performing,
Right.
but just allowing parents the option to choose charter schools as a system to educate their children.
It's having a magnificent effect on education, the quality of education in this country, and it's just now coming to Louisiana. We're fortunate to have the opportunity.
Right, you know, like I'm saying, it's kind of a hostile situation in this case, but in other states, it's just another option. Like private schools or church-funded schools are. It's just another option, and I think if we remove the stigma and look at it as another option, an opportunity to educate our children, like the magnet programs or whatever else you want to compare it to, then I think we can move beyond, our misgivings, I guess, about children.
Madam President, you just made two critical points that are being made nationally. First of all, it's really about options for parents. So now parents have more choices than they had, and any time a parent has a choice, it's a positive thing. Secondly, about closing the achievement gap. This is the primary discussion among all senior educators and among business leaders throughout the country right now. It's an economic gap and it's a race gap. We close that gap completely in Massachusetts, completely. There is no gap in our students who have over 80% poverty index or who are African American and Hispanic in our school. We close that gap, and I'll be happy to forward the commission that report that was released 2 months ago. So thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your comment. Next is Senior Field Representative Frank B. Gilbert. While he's coming, let me just, I know Don Shea was here earlier and I didn't get to acknowledge him before he left. And I see some other faces I recognize. I don't know all the names, but he's been in it. One of my friends has been in and out 3 or 4 times, and I keep thinking he's going to leave before I acknowledge his presence. Mr. Bill Wiener, good to have you. I saw school board member Lillian Priest speak in. Which way did she go?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's my school board member, and so I just wanted to acknowledge them today.
Madam President, that's my school board member too. Did you say Ms. Priest?
I said that was my school board member, but she's Commissioner Jenkins' school board member too.
I don't want to overlook that.
Okay, Mr. Gilbert.
Madam President, members of the commission, I'm Frank Gilbert, and the address is 1785 Massachusetts Avenue Northwest, Washington, D.C. 20036. To introduce myself, as indicated, I'm the Senior Field Representative at the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and the National Trust is a private, non-profit organization chartered by Congress in 1949. Our responsibility is to help develop the protection of historic buildings and historic districts, historic landmarks in all 50 states. My job at the National Trust has been to help local governments, drawing upon my years in municipal government. I greatly appreciate the invitation to come to Shreveport to discuss the benefits of having a local historic preservation program. This week, I've been very impressed by the historic resources, the historic buildings, the historic neighborhoods here in Shreveport and in the parish. We have a wealth of wonderful buildings, and it's a privilege to address you, and it's a privilege to work with people here in the parish and in Shreveport. I've listened and learned from all the persons I've met with as they discuss the goals of the city government and the parish government. And I think it's very important to think of historic preservation in terms of what it can accomplish as part of local government. Help achieve the goals of local government. I'm certain that you have a few questions, and so I'll be brief, because the Q&A period is always useful. A local historic preservation program in this community would involve the designation by the parish commission or the city council of one or more local historic districts and one or more individual landmarks. It is the elected officials who will decide whether or not you have a local historic preservation program and whether or not you designate one or more historic districts. A local historic preservation program calls for the appointment of an historic preservation commission, then the submission by property owners of plans for exterior alterations, not interior alterations, but exterior alterations or a demolition situation or new construction.
and then the review of the proposed work at monthly commission meetings by an Historic Preservation Commission, and then the awarding of a certificate of appropriateness by the commission authorizing the proposed work after a building permit is obtained. It's a process that has worked in hundreds of cities in all parts of the United States. It's a simple provision. It's not another layer. It's a situation, not another layer of government. It's a situation where property owners are helped by their neighbors who serve on historic preservation commissions. Through a new program, the parish or the city of Shreveport would make significant contributions, as I've said, to the goal that you have for the community. Neighborhood conservation is an important goal, and the creation of a local historic district will protect and strengthen older areas like Fairfield and the Highlands. Your historic neighborhoods are a valuable asset to the parish and to the city, and families have homes there, and historic districts are places that are livable and well located and meet the needs of the homeowners. You get a lot of building with an old historic house, a house that's still viable, still useful, and a part of the housing market goes to the suburbs, goes to the subdivisions, but another part of the market is looking for these wonderful houses that you have here in Shreveport and in the parish. It's important to explain the difference between a National Register historic district and a local historic district designated by the local government. The National Register of Historic Places, it was established by the federal government in 1966, creates an inventory of historic buildings, sites, and districts. And the Fairfield Historic District and the Highlands Historic District were placed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1987. However, this designation does not protect the historic character of these neighborhoods because there is no review of proposed changes in a National Register Historic District. And you can wake up and see something that was done over the weekend without any considerations to how it fits into the neighborhood and how it affects the property values, your investment in your home. So historic preservation is very much geared to helping property owners, helping the economics, helping their property values. Many other American cities have developed historic preservation programs in order to help their older neighborhoods. The work began in Charleston, South Carolina, New Orleans, and Santa Fe. But today, historic preservation is not just to attract tourists. Here in Louisiana, you have developing programs in Alexandria and Monroe, and existing programs in Baton Rouge, and of course in New Orleans. Local governments use historic preservation as a way to strengthen the older parts of their cities. They recognize that historic districts are a valuable asset and deserve support from local government. Local governments often consider three questions when a historic preservation ordinance is being proposed. Is the proposal fair to property owners? Two, how will the new law affect other departments and their programs? And three, what will an historic district commission cost? Is the new program, is the proposed law fair to property owners? Individual property owners and neighborhood associations often ask for the protection and help provided by creating a local historic district. Two principles guide local preservation commissions, and they should appear in any law that comes before you for consideration in the parish. The two provisions which I think are tremendously important, in reviewing the plans of property owners, preservation commissions shall be aware of their responsibility to find an appropriate way to meet the current needs of the property owner. An appropriate way to meet the current needs of the property owner. Looking around your neighborhood, you see a lot of good work, but every now and then you see something that you wish was not there. it hurts property values. There are a number of right ways of treating a building, a number of right ways to treat your neighbors, and frankly, there are a number of wrong ways. So it's very important for a commission to have the responsibility and to meet the responsibility of finding an appropriate way to meet the current needs of the property owner. And in reviewing plans, local commissions have the responsibility to approve plans that are within the budget of the property owner, to approve plans that are within the budget of the property owner. You don't suggest a Cadillac solution to somebody who's driving a Chevrolet. Historic preservation commissions do have the power not to approve plans of owners, but that power is rarely used. The property owner will have the right to appeal to the local governing body and then to the courts. The ordinance will contain a hardship provision, just like zoning, so the commission treats owners fairly. The key thing is for owners to be able to abide by the historic preservation guidelines, but be able to make reasonable use of their property. And of course, the Preservation Commission will not review plans relating to the interior of the building. What's involved is protecting the exterior, protecting the atmosphere, maintaining the historic character of some wonderful neighborhoods. The key element of a historic preservation program is the negotiation that takes place when the Preservation Commission suggests that owners modify their plans. A neighborhood and a local government is fortunate when there's a Preservation Commission dedicated to negotiating an answer with the owner, giving it all the attention necessary to an individual owner, more than other parts of government can do. I get a great deal of pleasure, satisfaction when I see at monthly meetings how the commission members work with property owners. For that period of time, the property owner has the complete attention in a large community, complete attention of dedicated people, volunteers serving on the commission. As I've said, there's a better way to make changes of buildings, and that can be discovered by this process. And I'm happy to report that Preservation Commissions work successfully with the Planning Commission, with the building officials, and they become a valuable and a cooperating and coordinating part of city government. And the cost, as I've seen it around the country, involves part of the time of one city employee to deal with agendas, calendars, certificates, and so it's a cost-effective program with a lot of contributed services. What we're talking about is a reasonable regulation of property with volunteers serving on the Historic Preservation Commission. And many people are entitled to different opinions, but a historic preservation program is legal and constitutional. Years ago, in 1978, the United States Supreme Court upheld the constitutionality of the New York City Historic Preservation Program involving city buildings and areas. The case was Penn Central Transportation Company versus the City of New York, and it involved the rejection of proposed changes, major changes, to Grand Central Station in New York City. The Supreme Court decision is regularly cited and is the good law today. In the Penn Central decision, the Supreme Court held that the objective of preserving historic buildings is an entirely permissible governmental goal, an entirely permissible governmental goal. The court reviewed the provisions of the local law and said that the city had used appropriate means. The city had used appropriate means to achieve its purpose. The court went on to say that the restrictions imposed are substantially related to the promotion of general welfare. Substantially related to the promotion of general welfare. As part of its opinion, the Supreme Court established the following test. An owner of an historic building must be able to make reasonable beneficial use of his or her property. In order to reach fair and consistent decisions, historic preservation commissions adopt and use design guidelines. In closing, the vision of tomorrow, our vision of tomorrow, includes the lessons and the spirit of the past. as seen in the buildings and neighborhoods and the workmanship of those who created these remarkable structures. Reviewing our treatment of our past, we see damage to part of our heritage. The success of a local preservation program will be important in indicating the type of environment a community wants and seeks to achieve. We can have communities with an understanding and appreciation of the past that will guide the creation of a promising future. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Galbraith. I have one commissioner that has questions. Commissioner Jenkins?
Thank you, Madam President. First of all, thank you for coming down, and I listened very intently to your presentation. I'm very impressed with it. But I guess I want to make, on the heels of the presentation that's been made here today, number one, express a concern and then make a request. I guess from legal for some information on this. And I want to say this also to my colleagues that are sitting up here, because, at some point, I know I received some information that these historic districts and the creation of them, they have the good side, but they have a downside sometimes. And a part of what I'm hearing is that it could put some pretty severe restrictions on landowners in the area, what they can do. And that in some cases, the establishment of these districts almost go to the extent of when municipalities come in and really expropriate people's property. Now, all I'm saying is this. You brought something before us today that I think warrants our attention. And if any kind of ordinance or any other form of legislation is going to be coming before us, then I'm asking legal to take a look at it and provide to all of the commissioners, if we can, the pros and cons of this concept, because I think there's some concerns that we need to take a look at. But thank you. I appreciate very much, Commissioner, your comments, and those of us in the field, as we work with volunteers, are very conscious of neighbors working with neighbors. I said that we have the opportunity to work with people, and we have to live by being intelligent, and the property owner must be treated fairly. There are various things built in, staying within the property owner's budget, help working with them, negotiating with them, suggesting ways that they can preserve and improve their properties. So, again, I remember every day that I'm dealing with somebody else's property, and I think others in the field remember every day they're working with somebody else's property. So I think there's a great deal of sensitivity as this program is developed in cities, and I believe I look forward to pointing out, in answer to your very important question, the fair treatment, the way that communities after communities, the property owners say, this will help us. Yes, it will involve review, but we have some confidence that the people, that the elected officials choose to serve on these commissions will be sensitive and aware of the need, if you heard me say that, the appropriate way to meet the current needs of the property owner within their budget. And so I think the record around the country will give you confidence, give you some of the answers to what you're looking for. And again, I appreciate the importance of your question. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbreth.
Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
We need a motion.
Go back to regular session, Madam President.
Moved by Commissioner Epperson, seconded by Commissioner Pearson, without exception. Next item, Mr. Spears.
Yes, we go ahead to public hearing on ordinances. First ordinance being Board Number 4879, amends your juvenile justice fund budget for the family in need of services in the amount of $15,000.
Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this ordinance? Anyone here to speak in opposition? Next case.
Ordinance 4880, declare certain adjudicated property to be surplus and authorize sale of the parish's tax interest.
Is there anyone here to speak in favor of this ordinance? Anyone here to speak in opposition? Next.
Concludes public hearing. Next, your work session minutes. You only have April 20.
Move that we ratify April 20, 2009 work session minutes.
Moved by Commissioner Dominic, second by Commissioner Epperson. Any discussion? Didn't hear anybody. Please vote. That passes. Next item.
Next, you have for final passage a zoning ordinance. That's ordinance 4874, zoning case P5. Calvary Baptist Church is the applicant requesting to rezone property at Glenwood Avenue and McCary Avenue to R3 for an adult living facility.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Thibodeau, second by Commissioner Smith. Any discussion? Please vote. Okay, that passes. Next item.
Yes, regular ordinances for final passage is that we just held a public hearing on, ordinance 4879, juvenile justice fund amendment for $15,000. So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Lynn, second by Commissioner Baker. Any discussion? Commissioner McCullough?
Yes, Commissioner Lynn, as I was reviewing your email and I was reviewing the resolution, there was a note that this was a rare situation. What made it specifically a rare situation?
The rare situation is that at one point in time, we funded them by supplying them with cars and insurance, and then also they received a $275,000 federal grant to increase their FINS officers, and so now they have more FINS officers there. However, they don't have any means of transportation to get them out within the community. And so this money, though, is given to them with no strings attached as forever for what they're going to spend it on. Most likely, they'll probably spend it on mileage reimbursement so that those FINS officers that they hired with the federal money can get in their own vehicles and travel to wherever it is that they need to travel to, thus decreasing the expenses at the juvenile detention facility.
Very good. I think she was protected.
Okay,
Let's
all right.
vote, please. That passes. Next item.
Ordinance 4880, declares certain adjudicated property to be surplus.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Pearson, second by Commissioner Baker. Any discussion? Please vote. Push one more time, Commissioner McCullough. Thank you. That passes. Next item.
Ordinance for introduction by title, ordinance 4881, amends your building maintenance fund budget for security costs at Government Plaza in the amount of $60,000. Next, says zoning ordinance for introduction. Actually, this is not a zoning ordinance. This is just here on the agenda for your information only. It's zoning case appeal BAP 49. You'll hear this at your May 21st meeting. Appeal of a denial by the MPC on two mobile homes on two separate lots.
Next item.
Next, resolutions. Resolution 19 supports the General Motors plant to remain federal.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Epperson, second by Commissioner McCullough. Commissioner Epperson?
Mr. Spears, this is so well written. I want to make ensure that we send copies of this everywhere, including the president. Very well written. Thank you.
Please vote. That passes. Next item.
Resolution 20 urges the Louisiana Legislature to adopt House Bill 110 and Senate Bill 26, increasing the use of compressed natural gas as a transportation fuel.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Smith, second by Commissioner Baker. Any discussion? Please vote. That passes. Next item.
There's no old business on the agenda. New business is to confirm the appointment of Mr. Lonzo Stewart to replace Dean on Fire District 2 Board.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner McCullough, second by Commissioner Jenkins. Any discussion? Please vote. Okay, that passes. Agenda additions, Commissioner Lynn.
To apply. Move to allow Marilyn Burns and the Juvenile Detention Facility to hire special legal counsel effective immediately.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Lynn, second by Commissioner Pearson. Any discussion? Please vote. I'm sorry. Commissioner McCullough?
Yes, I think early on I was referencing the rarity of this particular case. You spoke in the resolution that it was a rare situation, and I was wondering what made it a rare situation.
this particular case,
Yes, sir.
in that this is the first time that it has ever arisen. That's why it's rare.
Oh, okay. All right.
Please vote. That's one more time, Commissioner Jenkins.
I'm not so sure if I want to push out after a response like that, but I will.
Thank you. Commissioner Epperson,
I'd like to move that Mr. John H. Stewart be appointed immediately to the Board of the Coordinating and Development Corporation.
Yes, sir.
moved by Commissioner Epperson, second by Commissioner Baker. Any discussion? Please vote. That passes. Commissioner McCullough, would you like to do this other appointment today?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I did send out an email earlier about an opening on the Twin Valley RCD, and so, please give some thought to that as well, and also to the email that I sent out about the NACO presidential appointments. Don't move too fast, because I asked Attorney Grubb to wait because we had so many citizens here today to do our legislative report, so he's going to come now and do that. Thank you, Attorney Grubb. I appreciate you allowing them to go first today.
It's my pleasure. This is probably better. I have no place else to go anyway. Commissioners, I know it's late, and I'm going to try not to waste any time, but I want to go at your speed, so let me know if I'm going into too much detail or not enough. I don't mean to go too fast. My purpose in appearing before you today is to give you a briefing as to what's going on in the legislature. It's obviously going to be a broad brush type briefing, and get some, not necessarily get guidance from you, but tell you what our inclination is in the way of what positions that the Commission might want us to take on some bills based upon guidance that you've given in past legislative sessions. As you know, I've had some responsibility for communicating the Commission's positions to the legislative delegation in the 7 or 8 years that I've been y'all's lawyer. And I know that traditionally there's two general guidelines that y'all give us that we follow, and I want to review those right quick just to make sure we're still on the same sheet of music. One thing that that the Commission has done is generally resist any bills that cost money to the Commission. And the other general rule is is to generally resist any bill that inhibits y'all's authority to do your jobs as representing local government in Caddo Parish. So in some of the positions that you've seen us take tentatively now, because we really haven't done anything substantially in the legislature with one exception until we could meet with you and get this guidance, have been guided by those two basic principles. Now, probably single most important subject that's going on in the legislature in this session has to do with ad valorem taxes, ad valorem taxation, and there's two different major items concerning ad valorem taxes. The first has to do with there are a lot of bills in the legislature to affect the Commission's ability to roll forward taxes. I want to talk about that for a minute. And then the second thing has to do with the homestead exemption. First of all, it's been made very clear, y'all have made very clear to the citizens of Caddo Parish that you are not in favor of rolling forward taxes, and you haven't done it. I don't believe any taxes have been rolled forward since I've represented you. I know you're not you don't have any particular interest in doing that. And I might say that I think there's 65% of governmental entities in the state of Louisiana that have not done so in maybe ever for a long time. Anyway, there's not too many to do it. But there are a number of bills in the session this year that would affect y'all's authority to do so in the future if you ever wanted to do it. And these bills they're roughly in the three different categories. One would involve changing the
Constitution to prohibit any roll forward of taxes without a vote of the people. And then there's a second category that would limit any roll forwards that you can do it would tie them to an index, so it would be like a cost of living. They would tie the roll forwards, for example, to a cost of living increase based upon a consumer price index or something like that. And then there are also several bills in the legislature that would eliminate appointed boards from being able to roll forward taxes. I mean, the theory is that there's a difference between a public body that's composed of elected officials rolling forward taxes where they're responsible to the people for their actions, and an appointed board, like, I don't mean a single amount, but like a fire district or water district or something like that, that is composed of appointed people that, I mean, there's a question as to whether they should ever be able to roll forward villages without a vote of the people. My impression from talking to some people, I was down in Baton Rouge yesterday about this, my impression is that the situation involving appointed boards probably has more traction right now than anything else. I mean, I think you're very likely to see something come out of the legislature that will inhibit or eliminate the authority of appointed boards to roll forward taxes. But I guess the bottom line is, on this issue, is if your staff followed the general rules that you've given us in the past, the position would be that you would want us to resist any bills that would inhibit your ability to make these decisions in the future, as you have in the past, on whether or not to roll forward these millages. But I know rolling forward millages is politically very controversial, so we're not going to take that position unless we have some kind of understanding from y'all. And I'm not necessarily asking for it today. I just want to be able to give these issues to you today and get guidance in whatever way you want to give to us, so we can kind of tell what the judgment of the commission is. But the bottom line is, if we apply what y'all have given us in the past as general guidance, then your position would be similar, for example, to what the Police Jury Association's position is, the Louisiana Municipal Association, which is to resist these bills, the theory being that these decisions ought to be made not by the people in Baton Rouge, but their local decisions ought to be made by the local officials, whether it be commission, city councils, school boards, etc. So, does anybody have any comments or questions about that issue?
Take it right on. Okay, Mr. Jenkins, anyone else? Okay, Mr. Jenkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I'm just trying to make sure I understand. As this legislation rolls through the legislature, is our position known, or are you saying that you don't feel like you know what our position is? Your position will be known, Commissioner, not necessarily by Ms. Rose or myself or a commissioner being asked to come down and testify at a committee, but it would be known through informal conversations that we hold with legislators all the time. It would be known through input that we have with the Police Jury Association staff that we would authorize to talk on our behalf, that sort of thing. So, I mean, this is not just an academic discussion here.
Right.
All right. I just wanted, I guess I was asking that question because when you make the presentation, I was getting the feeling as though maybe you didn't feel as though you had some direction from us about our position on something like that. And I only say that because, and I want to make sure we're talking about the right thing. This is the homestead tax. This is not the homestead exemption. This has to do with rolling forward taxes, your ability to roll forward taxes. And I guess what I need to say, just to be clear about it, is based upon your prior guidance of us resisting bills that inhibit your ability to make local decisions that affect the local citizens, if I don't get a sense today until I get a sense of the commission to the contrary, I'm going to assume that that's your position as applied to these bills, and therefore will communicate to the Police Jury Association and to our legislative delegation as the occasion arises that it's y'all's judgment that these decisions, that the law should continue to be that these decisions should be made on the local level. I don't know that y'all have any strong position or strong feeling about whether appointed boards should be able to roll forward their millages. And you know, I'm certainly not going to sit here and say y'all need to have positions on every issue that comes before the legislature. In fact, the ones that I'm addressing with you are probably 5% of the ones that come before the legislature anyway. If you don't have a strong feeling as to whether fire districts and sewer districts and these other appointed boards should be able to roll forward their millages, then it's just we're going to monitor the legislation so we can report to you what the legislature does, but we're not going to try to influence in your name the outcome of that legislation. So my bottom line, I guess, is unless I get instructions to the contrary, I'm assuming that y'all want to be able to maintain your prerogatives that you have now in this area, and basically for us to leave alone something that doesn't pertain to the commission directly.
Okay.
That makes sense?
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Thibodeau?
Did I just hear you say that Ms. Rose may not know our position on everything?
No, sir.
I didn't hear that.
No. You may have heard it, but I didn't mean to say it.
Okay.
She does.
Representative.
We, during session, for better or for worse, we're in constant communication. And by we, I mean me and to some degree, Mr. Wilson, Mr. Lucky.
Okay. Have it into my screen here. Let me ask you, what are the disclosure requirements for the fire districts and all these other entities, I guess the appointed boards?
They have the same
Notice, because what ends up happening, they roll forward and we get blamed for it.
trying.
And so how much notice do they have to give the public when we roll back, but they roll forward?
Commissioner, I understand they have the same procedure to go through that the parish commission or the city council, the school board does. They have to put an ad in the paper. There's a stipulation of how large the ad has to be because it's got to be big enough that people can notice it, and they have to hold a public hearing on it. But, you know, the parish commission holding a public hearing is one thing. I don't mean to single them out, but the parish tax assessor holding a public hearing is something else.
Right, I understand.
But they do have to go through the same public notification requirements that, all tax authorities.
That was my question. I see no other questions.
Well, if there are no other questions about that, then let me go on to the second general thing, which is homestead exemption. Some of y'all, let me just say that the homestead exemption has much more visibility in the session this year, primarily because there's a couple of prominent legislators down there that have pushed it this year, that primarily folks from South Louisiana. There are bills down there, as y'all probably know, to raise the homestead exemption. The homestead exemption's been at $75,000 for a number of years, I think since the 80s. There are bills down there to index the homestead exemption to inflation. Right now it's fixed, but there's some bills down there that would provide for automatic increases in homestead exemption based upon inflation. I heard an interesting concept yesterday that's getting some talk down there, some serious talk as I understand it, of perhaps changing the law to where the first $10,000 on everybody's home would be taxable. That the homestead exemption would not kick in until $10,001. And then the next $75,000, next $150,000, whatever, would be subject to the homestead exemption. The proponents of that plan think that everybody ought to pay something, even though the taxes on $10,000 might not be significant to some, but it would be significant to others. I want to make it clear that, and there's also, at least under current law, the parish has no financial interest in this. It's not a question of how much taxes are going to be paid. The question is who is going to pay the taxes. And this is a situation. I mean, the homestead exemption, first of all, does not apply to anybody with rental property that rents their home. They're not eligible for the homestead exemption. So if the homestead exemption is raised, it's going to shift the tax burden somewhat from residential owners to business and to the owners of high-end property, and the estimate is maybe $300,000 to $400,000 and above, high-end residential property, because part of raising the homestead exemption is going to mean an automatic raising of the millages. I mean, if the homestead exemption goes up, then obviously the total taxable value of property upon which you base your property taxes goes down, and there is an automatic roll forward of the millage. This is different than the roll forward that takes place on the 4-year reassessments, where the millages are not rolled over unless you and the other public bodies roll them forward. And in the case of increases in the homestead exemption, the roll forwards are automatic without y'all taking any action. So the net effect of it would be, as I said, a transfer of some tax burden from residential to business and to these higher-end residential. There is also a bill or several bills in the legislature that would eliminate that automatic provision. That again would require a constitutional amendment. As y'all probably know, YB and other business groups are vehemently fighting increases in the homestead exemption. My perception is that the Police Jury Association and the LMA are not actively. I don't think that they're actively fighting the homestead exemption situation as much as they are the roll forward situation, as long as the law stays the same in terms of the fact that if you increase the homestead exemption, you're still not adversely affecting the total amount of taxes taken. So it's a long way of saying, I guess, there's a real fight going on involving business down there. It's kind of the business interest versus the populist interest, or whatever you want to call it. There's a report in today's paper, and I heard this yesterday, that a lot of people getting real excited because the governor was quoted saying he was now in favor of doubling the homestead exemption. I'm hearing that's not an accurate statement, but I'm sure I'm not speaking for the governor. I don't know. But the question is, do y'all have any interest in how this issue is resolved? And again, I'm asking it sort of rhetorically. I'm assuming, unless I get instructions from you to the contrary, that you want us to look after these bills to make sure that nothing passes that costs us money, and otherwise just stay out of it.
All right, let me make sure. You said you didn't think that LMA or police jury were going to be neutral on this bill?
I can't say they're going to be neutral, Commissioner, but their primary concern is to make sure that the law doesn't change to where their members lose money.
Okay, which right now, that's not what's on the table. I guess what my concern is, and I think I said this to you, this bill and probably a couple of others are going to snake in so many different directions before it gets to some final, I guess, compromise if it's not killed altogether. And, 1 week we may want to be on this side, and the next week, depending on what's looking like it may get through, we may want to be on this side of the argument. And so that's, especially on this bill, I'm just kind of concerned if we take a position too early that we may, be on the wrong side of the thing. So, I mean, I'm not for raising the homestead exemption, but it just seems to change every day as to what's, which direction it's going. So that's
which is why y'all get these daily reports from us, and I guess my conclusion is that that y'all would want us to stay on top of these bills to make sure that they do not get into a form that would cost the parish money, and basically just keep y'all advised of developments and stay out of them.
And at what point we need, critical point, I guess, that we need to engage.
Right.
Then we can do that. Now, the chamber is probably opposing
Very much
some
so.
lobbying, okay, which
Very much
I guess is another avenue. And some organizations that we're in partnership with that are taking positions
Right.
on it. Okay. Commissioner Epperson?
Did we get a copy of the resolutions that the association passed? You know, they usually, once they finalize everything, did we get copies sent up this year? If we didn't, could we get copies of them to give to everyone of the positions that the,
LMA.
because, you know, we had a couple from the floor, so they usually, after everything is over, they usually send us a packet up.
I don't know if I got one or not, but
If we would,
I can,
for Police Jury Association.
I know
Everything that we adopted,
I know that y'all are very capable of getting that, but I'll do the legwork. I'll get it for you, Mr. Epperson.
Commissioner Pearson?
yeah, I just wanted to say, you know, every week or every day almost, we'll be getting for and against notices from the State Police Jury Association. They'll be given whatever their positions is on different bills, and it may change, like you said, Madam President. It may change as the bill changes, but at least you'll be getting the benefit of their information because they're on the floor every day. You know, just like Rose is. That's Joe Rose. Yeah. But you'll be getting the benefit of their information, and certainly we can be a little bit more intelligent about that, asking questions and everything.
If there are no other questions on this subject, my next general...
If I could ask Charles a question? Charles, I understand that the homestead exemption does not include the city of Shreveport proper. Is that correct?
It doesn't include municipal taxes, that's right.
So it only affects the parish.
Right. The next general subject is there are a number of bills down there that address the film industry tax credit, which, as y'all know, expires. It's at 25% now. The general consensus, I don't know that there's a consensus because there are a lot of bills, but there sure is a movement to not just renew it, but increase it to 30%. I think we've seen the effects of what happens locally when the film industry has not been able to rely on this tax credit. And I'm assuming, unless y'all tell me something to the contrary, that when those bills come up to be heard, that we would be in favor of them if anybody asked. The other general thing I want to say before I talk about a few bills is we are fighting for some money down there again this year. As y'all know, in recent years, the main money that we've gone after is to fund certain programs in juvenile court. And we're trying to get the same money again this year that we got last year, which primarily is the Start Boot Camp money, which was $285 last year after it got an automatic 5% reduction. Some other money for the family drug court, I think it is, in juvenile court, which was $40,000, and about $135,000 for programs that VYJ funds that directly go to the juvenile court for offense officers, and I can't remember what the other project is. I did ask Joe Rose, the Appropriations Committee held a hearing on. They wanted to hear from NGOs last Monday. I didn't find out about this till Sunday that VYJ couldn't send that down there, so I did get Joe Rose to get together with Joe Duke with VYJ, and she made an appearance on behalf of the Commission to tell them how important this money has been to us. And so, I mean, I'm assuming that the Commission will want us to do everything we can to get this money, and this is going to involve some personal involvement with y'all before it's all over, because they want to hear from elected officials too. But the point is, I'm sure y'all have heard everything I've heard about money in Baton Rouge this year. It's very difficult to get, and what we're going to be able to get, I don't know. Whether we're going to have to prioritize what we're asking for at some point in time, I don't know. But I just want to let y'all know we're doing that. Y'all have at your desk a little packet that's paper put together, or stapled together, that has on the cover of it the money that's going to Caddo Parish out of House Bill 1 as it got out of the House Ways and Means Committees today. And there's 2 pages, I think it is 2 pages behind that listing from House Bill 1 that have the bills that we've actually taken positions on. I mean, do y'all all have that? I just need to spend a few minutes going through that with you if I can. See something that says bills tracked or something like that?
What's it look like, Charlie? Show it to them. You got
I
it?
don't have it.
Oh.
Looks like this, right?
Yeah, page 9 and 10, the 48, yeah,
Couple of pages.
page 9.
Let me just briefly go down these bills to I guess to advise you what I'm thinking the positions are, to make sure that y'all concur with them. I'm going to skip over all this ad valorem tax stuff that's in here because we've kind of already talked about it. For example, I mean, House Bill 79, the first bill on the list is a bill that limits the cost, limits the roll forward to a cost of living increase, but since we've already talked about that, I'm going to just skip over that unless y'all have something else. One I really want to talk to you about is House Bill 80, with a corresponding bill down further. This, as the summary is probably pretty incomplete, but this would authorize a state and local sales and use tax exemption for purchases of certain property by the Fuller Center for Housing. Now, following y'all's general guidelines to us, we would oppose that bill because it's a local tax exemption, and we oppose all local tax exemptions. This bill hasn't gone anywhere yet, but the corresponding bill in the House and the Senate by Senator Adley has cleared the House and got assigned, I think, today to it's cleared the Senate and got assigned today to a committee in the House. So this bill may pass whether we want it to or not. But, you know, I mean, it's a tax exemption for a very worthy organization.
Why are we against it?
Yeah, that's what I was doing there.
I mean, why are we, I mean, I understand the general rule, but I do understand our positions that we've taken on these type of organizations in granting sales tax exemptions when they come to us. So, why are we against it?
We're against it only until you tell me we're not. We're against it simply because it's a tax exemption, and we haven't done anything yet, Commissioner. This is just my notation on here based upon our general, but if, based upon the question you just asked, what I'm
I
hearing...
would be in support of it. But, you know, there are 10 other people here today.
I would too, but now, is House Bill 80 and House Bill 412, the same?
Yes, sir, in substance the same. And then there's a Senate bill that's the same, too.
Okay, well, why would just 2 bills they're just 2 parallel bills?
Oh, yes, sir, that's common. And then there's a third parallel bill in the Senate.
There's several of them.
It takes more than one shot at it.
That's right, so that's right. If one gets off the track, there's always another one.
Right.
Okay, all right. I support it. I mean, I'm not against it. Because of what he's doing.
Okay.
Affordable housing. I mean, they're providing housing in inner city communities.
Madam President,
Oh, yes.
I'm just trying to say, are we finna sit here now and try to engage in each one of these bills?
I think you just had a few we wanted to highlight,
No,
I
sir.
guess.
If you can give me about 10 minutes, I'll be through.
No, it's not the time frame, it's just
going through it and being able to digest the information and have a good understanding of what's involved here, I guess is what's bothering me. But we can do it. It's just that,
And that's a good point, Mr. Jenkins. I mean, you can't, it's unrealistic to think that y'all could take positions today on 50 bills or something like that. I think one of my goals today is to make sure that y'all understand what we're following, and you don't have to give us positions through formal commission meetings. I mean, if you have an issue about a bill, if you call me and talk about it, I'm gonna make I don't know how to say this, except I would make a judgment, I guess, on whether I think the commission as a whole would feel like this, and y'all, for those of y'all that remember in the past, I will come before y'all probably more or less every commission meeting, and not to take this kind of time, but I'll have 2 or 3 issues I want to talk to you about just to make sure we're tracking. But I think I heard the message on the Fuller Center bill.
Is there like a big, you sent us an email earlier with all this, with a lot of this on it. Does it have a brief description about what each bill is about? Or does
It's got a little bit better description than you have in front of you there, Commissioner. House Bill 2, let me just mention one thing that's not on the list. I found today House Bill 88, which specifically authorizes someone to serve on a police jury and at the same time be a full-time U.S. government employee. I assume that bill's of no interest to anybody.
4.
Yeah.
4.
4. I mean, it would only be relevant if somebody was serving on this. For those years.
Yeah, I forget what the...
I think they're gonna...
I read something, it was what some juror had a job, oh, I know what it was. It would allow a police juror to work for the census, is what it was, the little description that I saw.
That may be what that bill was filed for.
That's what it was filed for,
Yeah.
to allow police jurors to have census jobs,
Okay.
have a census job.
Yes, sir.
Well, if it's good for a jury, then put a commission on that. If that makes a difference. But it's good for the goose, good for the gander.
Because I guess the school board has no such prohibition, because there are some school board members that have census jobs now.
I have no idea. The next bill I do need to bring to your attention, House Bill 243. This bill requires disclosure by officials elected from voting districts with a population of 5,000 persons or more. That's y'all. It requires disclosure of certain financial information regarding employment or appointment of campaign contributors. It's Ethics Code revision, and it basically says that you have to make a disclosure if you are part of the appointment of any financial contributor to you that has contributed either through money or loans more than $1,000 to a campaign. If you then appoint someone to a committee or whatever, you have to make a financial disclosure of that. We've never taken positions on ethics bills, and I'm really just giving you that as a matter of information, unless anybody has any comments. The best bill in the session this year is House Bill 289 by Jim Morris. It will dedicate half of the severance tax to the state generated by the Haynesville Shale to local government. Half of that would be used to provide for water resources, to find new water resources. I mean, the bill was, Representative Morris basically wrote this bill with Caddo and Bossier in mind, obviously, and that's where most of the Haynesville Shale and DeSoto. So half of the money that would be derived to local government would be used for water resources, and the other half would have to be used for infrastructure maintenance and improvement. I asked the rest of the how he thought about that bill, and he asked me to give him some specific information, said he's going to run with it and run with it hard. So that's something that we've got a big interest in. I'll tell you that House Bill 353 got out of committee this week. It raises the current limit of public employees, what public employees can do in the way of without contracting to $100,000, and this is now, it's now, I think, in the current form raised to $150,000, which isn't as high as they wanted to go, but it's still a 50% increase over what it is today.
Can you explain that a little bit more? I'm a little confused on that.
Yes, sir. The public contract law says that anything that, in the way of construction that's over $100,000 has to be contracted out.
Okay.
And this would, through public bids, and this would raise that value to $150,000. I think the theory behind it has a lot to do with the increase in oil prices as it applies to asphalt roads and stuff like that.
I remember it now.
Yeah, and I will say there's also at least one bill in some of the bills. Last year we had a local bill in to raise the limit on what we had to bid out to $250,000, and we got beat on that because the contractors voted up about it. But this year I think there's talk of compromise in the air that would raise that to $150,000 too. So I think we're going to make some progress on that this year. Let me see. I'll just tell y'all for interest purposes, 486 requires, there's two bills in here to do this, and one of them is by, let me not say that since we're on television, but it will require sales tax to be paid on the basis of the domicile of the purchaser rather than the site of the transaction. It's crazy, but there's two bills in to do that, but obviously we're just watching that one for the ride. There's a bill by...
Any explanation on that one, Commissioner?
No. There's a bill by 492 by Representative Burford from DeSoto Parish. Strengthens the Commissioner of Conservation's hands to initiate lawsuits to compel cleanup of well spillage, well sites. Your printed thing says neutral, but after reading the bill, I think we ought to support that because it will make it easier for the Commissioner to compel oil companies to, as I appreciate, oil and gas companies to restore sites where there's been drilling activity.
Is there a bill to encourage the Commissioner to invoke his power to do so?
533 is another tax exemption bill. It authorizes state and local. This would authorize a local sales and use tax exemption. You would have to vote to do it. It's not automatic. On the purchase of generators over a certain size. I think this really has to do with hurricane relief and that sort of thing. I've marked it to oppose simply because it's a tax exemption bill, and we'll keep it that way unless somebody has an issue with it.
Let me ask you, on these positions, are these formal positions that we take when the bill goes to hearing, or is it just on a sheet of paper? I mean, some of them I know we engage more actively than others.
It's instructions, there are instructions to myself and to Joe and to Woody as to what we tell legislators when they ask us what we think about something.
Okay, so we're not going to show up at the meeting on this generator bill and say,
absolutely not.
Okay, that's what I want to
No, absolutely not. Now, we'll show up on Mr. Morris's bill, on the severance taxes.
Okay.
We mentioned House Bill 596 to you by Patrick Williams.
I have a question.
This will generate, I think it's $750,000 to the District Attorney's Office for his violent crime unit. I talked to the District Attorney about this the other day because I noticed it looked
like the money was coming out of the state police hide, and I had a feeling that wasn't the intention of the bill, but he called back yesterday and told us that, I'm not sure whether the bill had to get fixed or whether my reading of it was incorrect, but the bottom line is if this bill passes, the money will come out of, not the state police, it'll come out of the general fund. I asked him if this bill would have any direct impact on what, on the financial support that he asked the commission to provide to his office every year, and he said not immediately, because its purpose is to address some needs they don't have now, but he said over time it would, and I mean, since this gives additional money to, for law enforcement in Caddo Parish, I'm assuming that the position would be that we would be in favor of that.
Let me go back. When it says gaming revenues, what does that mean? The gaming revenues part.
It comes out of it doesn't come out of boarding fees, it comes out of
The money the state
the 18
gets.
and 19% that the state gets off the top.
And it's for the violent crime unit?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that the prosecuting arm, or is that the, I mean, this is a district attorney, so I'm assuming that's for more lawyers?
Yes, ma'am. Investigators and lawyers. Let's see.
More than one time.
House Bill 633, right now,
Broke off the end of that.
this is one I didn't need to talk to you about. Right now, when you're over age 65 and own a house, your valuation is frozen. So, but there is an income restriction on that. If you're a millionaire making $1 million, I don't know what the restriction is, but there's a restriction on it that if you make over a certain amount of money, then you don't have the benefit of the freeze. This House Bill 633 is a constitutional amendment that would delete the income restriction, so that basically anybody over age 65 that owns a house would see their valuation frozen. Again, I see on the list, I put opposed down on that simply because it would cost money. We're just following y'all's general rule. And this is not the kind of, this is the kind of bill, to try to address something you said earlier, Commissioner Lynch, this is the kind of bill that, unless y'all give us instructions to the contrary, we're just going to tell the police jury. A lot of bills that we just say, we're with you. And I don't know what, my guess is the Police Jury Association would be opposed to this bill, but again, it's not the kind of bill we'd sit down and testify to, but it's the kind of bill that if, that Representative so-and-so might come up and ask what we think about it, and so unless I'm instructed to the contrary, I would tell him, well, we're instructed to tell you that if it costs us money, then we're opposed to it.
But this would have to go on the ballot.
Yes, ma'am.
So, ultimately, the voters of the state would decide.
Right.
So, I'm not opposed to, if you're over 65, freezing your property values, regardless of how much money you make. I don't know a whole lot of people over 65 that make a whole lot of money. Unless you call Pearson or something, but...
That's a request.
Erica, you did.
Where do people get tax relief?
Can I add something to that one?
Yes.
In that particular bill, saying anybody over age 65, regardless of income, there are a lot of homeowners in Caddo Parish over age 65, so there could be a significant decrease in
But
property
what
values.
is the income amount? If it's 10,000, okay, so it would totally eliminate it.
Right, they would eliminate
Well, no,
that.
it would freeze their property value at what it is at the age of 65.
Yes.
Okay, so why is that a bad thing?
Okay.
I'm a long way from 65, but let me hear from some folks that's close to that.
You need to know what the monetary break is.
I ain't one of your guys all left.
The present law says that if a person's adjusted gross income exceeds $50,000 a year, the millage would be, the freeze would not be applicable to them, so the cutoff is at $50,000.
I guess I'm just not opposed to it going to the people to be voted upon, and that's basically what this bill does.
Well, then unless I hear something to the contrary, I'm just going to say neutral on that.
We'll call it the next number.
Okay. All right,
What do you think, Mike?
Why, 'cause I'm close to 65.
all right, House Bill 641, sales tax exemption for telecommunications services. I imagine that would have a big ticket item to it, but we've got opposed on that for the same reasons we said before.
That was 643?
That was 641.
Oh, 641.
642 provides relative to state funding for non-governmental organizations, and what it does is, it sets as criteria for NGOs that are funded by the state through the same struggle we have every year with House Bill 2, that it basically would say that an NGO is not going to be funded by the state unless, the project has statewide or substantial regional impact, 2, has been presented openly and discussed during the legislative session, 3, is a state agency priority, and 4, has the proper disclosure form published online prior to consideration for funding as provided for in RS so-and-so. So it sets forth criteria for approving these grants, and again, I just thought it was something worth looking at, but not to really get involved in. 643 excludes internet sales from state and local sales and use taxes. That would be a big ticket item, I assume, if it passed, and so I would assume that we'd be opposed to it.
Let me go back to that. You said what is it?
It excludes internet sales from sales and use taxes. Right now, if you and Ms. Bryan may be able to help me here, but right now, if you purchase something on the internet from a supplier that has a fixed place of business or does business in Louisiana, you have to pay their sales tax. So if you bought something off of Walmart's website, you'd be paying sales tax on it, but if you bought something off of
eBay.
Some businesses do not have a
Macy's or somebody that doesn't have a store in Louisiana, you wouldn't have to pay the sales tax.
Yeah.
Let's see. 663 authorizes political subdivisions to develop uniform standards to receive electronic bids. Right now, we're having to deal with electronic bids on a statewide procedure that's unworkable for local government. Mr. Rogers advised me that this is a really good bill. I want to tell you 680 just as a joke, so to speak. It authorizes local government to levy a tax on motor fuels, which means that y'all could pass, if this bill passed, y'all could actually pass something levying a tax on gasoline.
That won't happen.
I mean, I don't know what else to say about that.
It's the option.
There's 683 provides a royalty payment offset for ad valorem taxes paid for depot and gas drilling production, which is defined as greater than 15,000 feet, which is greater than Haynesville Shale. I opposed on that because it sounded like something that costs us money, but after reading the bill, I just think we ought to look at it as it goes through to make sure it doesn't get amended or something.
So that's neutral?
Yes, ma'am.
Let me ask you before you go off this page, back on 633.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Pearson was out, but I kind of did a straw poll. I think we're for.
Ad valorem taxes, special assessment level, so that we can decide.
No,
whether we roll forward.
that's at the age of 65. Now, if you make less than $50,000, your property values are frozen. but this bill takes away the income limit. So basically, once you turn 65, if you own your home, your property tax is frozen at that value.
That's what I want.
That's what I thought.
Everybody get that?
So we want to make sure that that's for.
So that does away with the income level?
Right.
What about changing the income level to 100,000?
Well, the bill is just to put it before the people to vote.
Right.
Yeah.
Me too.
Next page.
Next bill I'm looking at is, 829, transfers responsibility related to water wells and drills from the Department of Transportation and Development to the Department of Natural Resources. I mention that to y'all only because you've heard people talking about that up here when you've had presentations from the Commission of Conservation. I never have understood why water well regulation is in the Department of Transportation and Development in the first place. And so it sounds to me like this is a good idea, but I've just got it down here to watch it since it doesn't have any direct effect on us anyway. The SB 9, go to the Senate bills right quick. We're getting close to being through, folks. Sales tax exemption on demonstrator boats. It just sounds to me like a special interest sales tax exemption that I would assume we would oppose. I do need to bring your attention to SB 21. This is a trying again of what failed last year to raise the cap on the distribution of state severance tax revenues to parishes. Right now, the cap is $850,000. This would raise it up to it put another $1 million on it, and then, as you can, I'm not sure if it's in your summary, but it would actually go up to $2,850,000 in 2011, 2012. This bill passed the legislature last year, but when it went before the people, it was voted down. And the theory is it was voted down because the three-letter word TAX was in the proposition, and I think the proponents of that are going to try to do it again this year and maybe have the proposition word a little bit more clearly to make people know it's not a raise. So I assume in favor of that, that would be new money to us if it came in.
We're sponsoring this bill this year.
Well, this particular bill is Mr. Marino, Senator Marino, but I'm not sure there's not another one in there, too. Okay. This would be a priority bill for the Parish Association. This bill by Senator Alley, Senate Bill 84. Right now, when you purchase materials and supplies, you have to go with competitive bids over $40,000. I'm sorry, over $20,000. This would raise it to 40. You still would have to go through not a sealed bid process, but obtain a written quote type process. This is a bill that is pushed by the Police Jury Association. It's gotten out of committee, and it may have even gotten out of the Senate, I'm not sure. I just mentioned Senator Jackson, since she's local, has a bill that affects all permits that go on liquor licenses for restaurants. I read the bill, and it looks to me like it basically clarifies, instead of, right now the law says you can get one of these if your principal commodity that you sell is food as opposed to alcohol. This changes it to say 51%. I mean, it puts a more objective standard on. I've got our position down as neutral because I don't guess it, my assumption is it doesn't really affect the commission that much, but I wanted you to know she was doing that. 169 by Senator Broom grants an exemption for radiation therapy treatment centers for sales taxes. I again assume we oppose that. There's Senator Abbey's 206 on the Fuller Center, which we've already talked about, which is already on the House side. I We need to tell you, Senate Bill 63 by Martini it says it has restrictions for qualified truck stop facilities. What it does is it says that no future truck stop applications will be considered if they're located within 2,500 feet of residential property, which seems to me to probably pretty well stop the development of truck stops in Caddo Parish, because, and y'all have been through the course on this with the truck stop applications y'all heard a couple of years ago. But if residential property includes property upon which somebody's residing, or residentially zoned property, I'm not sure that there's any property in Caddo Parish that would not be, that there wouldn't be that kind of property within 2,500 feet of it. So I just marked it down as neutral because I have no feeling that y'all have a feeling about that one or the other. You're going to notice Senate Bill 286 enacts the Louisiana Equal Pay for Women Act.
Yeah.
This bill has been this bill has been filed. I can sense a split thing. I'll just tell y'all, this bill has been filed for a number of years. It hasn't passed. I don't know why it hadn't passed. This is the bill. Ms. Frazier's walking out of the office, out of the room right now.
She doesn't want equal pay.
But this is the bill that Ms. Frazier's looking at to see what it would really do. I mean, obviously discriminating against women in employment is already a violation of federal law. It's a violation of state law, too. I'm not real sure what this does, but we're sure going to follow it. I don't know why it hadn't passed in years past. I don't know why it's controversial. I'm just telling you all up front, we hadn't had a chance to really get into it yet. But as we learn something about it, I'll let you know.
I'll stay at home.
That's the end of my list.
Let me ask you about
187, when the tent prohibition, what's that? Actually harassing people.
Senate Bill 186.
I like my windows tinted, I don't smoke no joint and drink no beer while I'm riding. That's prohibited all in the cars?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
187, not the beer and the smoking part, the tent part. 187, SB 187.
Look, there are three bills on your list that don't have, I think it is, that don't have Caddo Parish Commission next to them.
Oh.
And those bills are on there through a computer glitch from Ms. Rose. We're not following it.
Okay, what about the public records emails, written acknowledgement? What's...
I've got down there, I'm sure, to watch that bill. As I appreciate, emails are public records already, and that bill does require users to sign something acknowledging that they're public records. We already do that in Caddo Parish. We've done it. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but we've done it for years. So I don't think it has any direct effect on us. We've always assumed that email is a public record.
I wanted to ask about Senate Bill 304.
Yes, ma'am.
What is that?
I don't think it has,
Have any effect on it?
let's see. Commissioner Lynch, I don't think this bill has any effect on our planning commission because we have a local bill that governs the makeup of our planning commission. But since you asked, I'm going to check on that and send you an email to let you know for sure if I'm right about that. Any other questions?
Vita, if you move this block off my screen, I will see if there are any other commissioners on here.
I will say one more thing if I can. Obviously,
legislative process is a very fluid process, and you never know when a new issue is going to come up. We have, as Commissioner Lynch knows from last year, as the vice chair, when your staff needs some quick guidance on something, that we can't get from y'all because we can't be sending out emails wanting to poll, that's a violation of the open meetings law. So we will contact the president and at times the vice president to make sure we have a consensus to get guidance between meetings. And that's all I have unless y'all have questions or comments.
No questions here.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you. Meeting's adjourned.
Let me apologize.